order the Planning Commission work session for September 8th, 2020. Roll call, we have Commissioner Widola.
Present.
Commissioner Giles.
Present.
Commissioner Harsh.
Present.
And myself. So, do we have any staff announcements before we move into the comprehensive plan update? Anything that we need to be aware of?
Not at the moment. I think at our next work session, I'll have more updates for the commission in regards to House Bill 2001 and upcoming work that the commission will be taking part in.
And when is our next meeting?
Our next meeting is scheduled for September 29th. Or wait a second. Today's the 8th. Sorry. September 22nd.
And will that be a work session or do we have any hearing items?
It'll be a work session. And right now we will definitely have an update on the Parks and Rec Master Plan because we have that scheduled for a Planning Commission hearing on October 13th.
October what?
13th.
Okay.
And then also on the calendar for October, and I'll send you an updated forward-looking calendar tomorrow. We are looking at the first hearing with Planning Commission on the housing needs analysis on October 27th.
So I'm assuming that you took it to council and they decided to go forward using this.
Yep.
So this hearing on the 27th. So I know that we had a deadline that has already expired regarding any comments. When, say, those of us that just dug through a binder found our housing needs analysis with notes, if we were to give you anything, what's the drop dead date to get?
I can, if you forward me your comments and questions, I can have those turned around within a week.
Okay.
And send the document back to you.
And so at the last deadline was the August 28th deadline, and you were having each of us put in separate submittals to be combined into one document. Right. Is that document that's been edited available online right now for everybody to see, or do we need to wait for our packet prior to that?
So I'm gonna actually, Jean, I'm gonna wait to receive your comments, and I'm gonna feed that back into the document, and then I'll send it out next week. How does that sound? So you'll have a clean H&A document with everybody's comments by next Tuesday.
Okay. And did Commissioner Kai and Commissioner Brown make sure that they, after this meeting or tomorrow can be aware of our deadline for that? I will
definitely touch base with the both of them tomorrow.
And make sure they know it's going to hearing on the 27th. Yes. That would be much appreciated. Mm-hmm. All right. And my only other general announcement would be about the emails for our new commissioners. Has that been resolved? Yep. It has. Mike is. Yep. Taylor, no.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Is there? I just haven't seen an email. It may be set up. I just haven't had anybody reach out and say, "Here's what you do to log in," or "Here's your password," or anything like that.
Let me resend that to you. I sent it last week. Yeah.
Let me just. I can search for it here. Hold on.
So Taylor, the trick. One of the tricks is they've changed their policy because normally you used to go in and enter your password on a computer in the office. So you actually have to call the tech support, and you'll give them a password and they will set it for you. And it's a fairly obnoxious, like 14-character password with stuff. So unfortunately, you pretty much have to write it down.
Oh, you know what, Taylor? I sent it on the 28th, but I sent it to your Sherwood email instead of your personal email because that's what popped up first. So
all right. Well, I will not take credit for that one then.
Okay. All right.
So I also have one announcement. So we actually launched a survey for the housing. So it's live. There was some social media on our 2040 webpage that we launched in addition to the Twitter page. So yeah, look out for it.
And all of our email distribution lists and the utility customers will be getting it this week.
And when does it run through?
It runs through September 14th, I believe.
Excellent. I did see the email on that, so thank you very much. Any update on how many people have responded so far?
We haven't checked yet over the holiday weekend, but we have a check-in tomorrow, so I'll get those numbers and let everyone know.
All right, excellent. All right, so we have two updates for this evening. The first is the housing needs analysis, which I kind of preempted by confessing my just finding my documents. So go ahead, Erica. We're ready for your update, a real one.
So the real update is that we have this scheduled for a public hearing, which is pretty exciting, on October 27th. And I know that I had some conversations with some planning commissioners who felt comfortable moving it along. And then I know, Jean, you have some comments, and I have some additional Scrivener errors that I need to fix on my end. So if you provide me any comments, any additional comments that you may have by the end of this week, I will turn those around and have a clean document back to you by next Tuesday.
So this will be our first, I think this will be our first hearing with Commissioners Harsh and Giles. So we have one more meeting prior to then. So I was just throwing it out there that maybe we should put together as part of our work session next time. How's a hearing going to work, and protocols and expectations. This is a legislative matter, so it's a little bit different than our land use hearings that are quasi-judicial. So just maybe a little 101 on how the protocols work. And it's kind of good to start with the legislative ones because no ex parte contact.
Yep. And we'll put together a protocol list, and I'll send it out to everyone, so we can all review those protocols and see what they are in order.
Okay, so the protocols are for the September 22nd meeting, or is that?
Protocols for our legislative hearings.
Yeah.
Which we have our first legislative hearing with the two new commissioners will actually be on October 13th for the Park and Recreation Master Plan. And then we have another legislative hearing scheduled for October 27th, which is the housing needs analysis.
Okay.
So I did find out that my Microsoft Teams did update, so I can now raise my hand. So we'll have to figure out between now and then if the commissioners will have to use one or the other. Either if everybody has the option to raise their hand, we can use that. Otherwise, we're going to have to use the text box to have people chime in that they have a question during the hearing.
Or people might be able to raise
do this if we can.
Yeah.
Can okay.
All right.
Any other? Yes.
Giles.
Commissioner Giles.
So the comments that we're supposed to have by the end of this week are for the housing needs analysis and any comments or updates that we have for that. And that is our action item for that.
Yep.
By the end of the week.
Yes.
And most people had probably already done that, but I had lost my notes and I just found them, so I was tardy. Any other comments before we move on to the comprehensive strategic action plan? Right, Erica.
All right.
Right.
So I was talking to Chair Simpson before everyone got online here, and what I'm going to do is I am going to create a binder with our planning team that has all the information. Well, I shouldn't say all the information, but most of the information for each of the comprehensive plan themes that we have been through already, and we're going to tab those. So what you will get here in the next week is a binder, and the binder, for example, for the economic theme, you'll have the one pager document that's pretty simple. That briefly summarizes the characteristics of Sherwood in economic terms. And then you'll get the background report for that theme. And then you'll get the final draft goals and policies for that theme area as well. And so you'll get this, you'll have all the themes that we have currently have gone through. And then as we move forward with our last two themes, we'll continue to update that binder. Excuse me.
So while she takes a drink, the purpose with this is, and again, I had between CAC meetings, PAT meetings, a COVID, a job change, and my packets not being 3-hole punched, I lost cohesion. And I felt that it would be fair to get all the commission up to speed and get myself back in line with grounding us for those 3 documents in all 6 of the things before it comes to hearing, so we're not having to read 2.5 inches in a big huge 3-ring binder. And the other thing that this will help us do is I envision 7 tabs, so each block will have a tab, and we'll have placeholders for the blocks that we haven't gotten to. And then there'll also be a tab for this document that we're looking at tonight, which is the strategic action plan, and any other overarching plan documents, so that when it comes to hearing as a planning commission, we'll have a 3-ring binder that has been dedicated to our comprehensive plan process. So I think Commissioner Harsh and Commissioner Taylor got something similar to this when they first came on board, but the rest of the commission, we haven't really had anything like that. So, and then I would envision that when it gets closer to hearing, that the council might end up wanting something similar.
For sure.
Maybe just the 6 blocks with white pages or something. So
yeah.
Anyway, yes, Commissioner.
So I just have some feedback on seeing this with fresh eyes. The summary, the vision statement, the comprehend, all of those different paragraphs. Could I send you my notes on that? That might help it make a little bit more sense. There's a lot of words and acronyms that are thrown around that, as somebody who's kind of coming new to it, I get lost in them. And so I've kind of rewritten this, and you're welcome to, if you want to send me the Word one, I can make the changes and then send it back, or I can just maybe give you a call, and I don't want to retype this all, I guess. And so, so whatever the legal way is to do it, I'm not trying to have a secret meeting or anything. I just want to give you my feedback on this, but in a way that I don't have to reinvent the wheel here.
Yep.
Okay.
And my apologies, because I did get back late last night from the fires in Detroit. I didn't review this until about an hour ago. Usually I pre-read and absorbed all this stuff.
So, Erica, what's the best way for me to get you my feedback on this part? Because I don't want you to print it all out and then have to change it again, right?
Can you email me those changes or edits?
Yeah, I can just scan these in. I mean, it's just written in handwriting though, and so
yep, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
All right.
So Erica, for this review tonight, did you want to provide anything other than what you've already printed to us? Are you going to look for verbal input from us, or what type of feedback are you looking from us tonight on this?
So I am just looking to get you acquainted with this document and how it's structured, and why we have it. And then we can either there's a couple ways we can go about this. We can go through it like theme by theme, and maybe we do one theme tonight, or two themes tonight, however you want to do it, and then we can come back and do a theme or two in a different work session.
I had one comment. One is, I don't know if it's a little early because I don't know if all the commissioners have been given all the information for the different blocks, because coming from an outside, I don't know if all these action items are going to make sense if you don't have the background information.
Right.
And then I appreciate you putting all the ones in there so we can dot them back to the draft policy and goals. And I know that some of the action items are blank because they're more of a mandated item. So I would envision maybe in the action strategy, just mandated or mandated by. That way we know why we don't have an action item is it's just a mandate, and we have to have a 20-year supply, and someone reading the document new wouldn't necessarily know that.
Right.
So I just have a question. Does everyone know where this fits in regards to
This
our
whole
process? This
Okay.
is an action plan, whereas the very end, the ultimate goal is to have all of these goals and policies. And so how would the action plan is how do we implement them? What are the next steps of making them a reality?
Okay, thank you.
That's what this whole action plan is. And so every time we go through a theme, we start thinking, okay, what are the next steps of, instead of it just being aspirational, what are the solid things that we can do, like making code changes or creating another task force or something like that to actually try to implement what the community or what all of us have come up with at the very end.
So I would ask, because I did understand that, because it's kind, to me it's like an outline of the it's like a worksheet. This is the worksheet. After we're done, here's the beginning outline of the worksheet of how we're going to make each section start to work. And so some of my other thoughts is when I make it an action plan, I always have a column of a due date, and I know that short-term, long-term win is on there, but I don't know if actually putting a date on it would, 2021, 2024, 2030, so we know what short-term, long-term, and immediate would be, or completed.
Oh, that's
Understanding that it's going to be changed the minute it's produced because it's a living document. And then this, my other question was on this document. We are not going to be adopting this as part of the hearing process, are we?
That is correct. You're not going to be adopting this as part of the comp plan document itself, but what I'm thinking is that the commission will accept it, accept the document, and will recommend the document for acceptance for City Council.
How would it be different than the capital improvement plan or the budget?
So this document definitely can feed into the budget. So these items on our work plan, like the budget committee, like every year may want to look at the strategic plan to figure out how and where they want to prioritize the budget every year for some of these projects. It could be, so this plan really can be utilized in a multitude of different ways. It could be used like internally as a work plan for departments within the city. It could be used as a tool for the budget to implement, budgetary actions that the city may want to take. Yeah.
It's going to be hard if someone doesn't own each section for accountability, for it to be pulled off the shelf and an action taken off the document itself. Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. And so what I'm hoping too is that since this is a living document, staff, we come back once a year and we update, planning commission on this action plan, what we've done, or what we plan to do in the future to implement these items. And that way it holds us accountable to be working on these things.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, and we may be delving too deep because a lot of this just falls under community development. So, I can't imagine Julia going through 1,000 tasks once a year to make sure that everybody's doing it. So I'm just throwing out some thoughts about, additional columns for management and assignment of tasks, because if it has to be reviewed by the budget committee to be incorporated into the plan, then we need to have a column for, budget consideration in what year. Many of them may be not applicable because they're not part of the city budget, but if the city budget has to accommodate,
that would be a good column to have in there, for sure.
Because if we want to update the code, I know that is a definite budget item that has to be planned for.
Yep.
So.
Great.
And then how would someone add to the items or take them off once we send it off to council to be not adopted, but recognized?
So what I envision is that staff would, utilize this document too internally. And when we have something completed or once we have something done, we would, update the documents, and then report back to the planning commission and ultimately city council that, that we've completed this task.
Okay. Commissioner Harsh?
Yeah, just a quick question. We brought it up before, and I don't understand the ramifications of the budget versus our actions. And it was something we were going to talk about at some point down the line when we have time. Can we do that on one of our work session agendas, or I can have a one-on-one with you or someone else to understand those aspects? Because I don't understand how this all stuff is tied. A lot of these actions and activities we're doing are tied to budget. So just understanding how that is, just the parameters around that, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, you just mentioned it again. You said, hey, this takes a budget thing. I'm like, wait, why? So.
Well, I guess from a layman's perspective, I can't, as a planning commission, we can't vote and say, hey, we want the staff to do a code amendment because we are now spending money, and that has to be approved through the budget process. It has to oftentimes come from the city council to say that it is a prioritized item that budgeted funds would be allocated to. A code amendment may cost several $1,000s between agency notices, public hearings, and all the other items that are involved.
Okay. But if it's identified, in this work plan as a strategic item to implement the comprehensive plan, it makes a better case for how we should seek funding to do that code change. We could seek grant funding or other funding sources to implement that action item.
Right, there's a direct nexus in regards to, we've already done all this work and identified there's a need, and here's our action plan. And so it scores better too when we're adding it or when we're applying to grants. because they know that we've gone through this work and effort and identified the need.
Right. Well, and it sounds like if stuff we're suggesting incurs an expense in terms of resource from the city, then it has to be budget. That makes sense. I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and my other honest statement is this is a lot to try and read. It really is. So, trying to get from you what sort of, I guess back up. Who came up with the action items? Was this the CAC,
So, yeah,
the TAC?
excellent question. So the first set of action items for our first theme block, which is our economic section, those action items actually came out of a memo, a strategic plan memo um, from our consulting team that the CAC reviewed, and the our vision team back in actually 2018 reviewed too, as part of our work scope for that economic opportunities analysis that we did.
And that was a very prescribed process. The economic needs analysis and the housing needs analysis were both very prescribed documents, and those are established procedures in the city. But when we get to things like strategic and collaborative governance, where are those action items coming from? Or strong community and culture?
So those action items have come through a variety of forms. So some of those action items we actually heard from stakeholders during our stakeholder interview process. Some of those action items were developed by staff as well. But a lot of the action items that are in that document, we've heard from folks within the community. This is what we need. And we've heard some of those action items. We've heard from the CAC, from our community advisory committee when we talk about next steps. They've thrown out a lot of good ideas of what they want to see on the ground in the future.
I would also assume you hear some of it through the survey process when you ask for any other comments. Do we have? So prioritization as we go forward through this process, we have goals, policies, objectives, and now action items. From a 10,000 foot view for everybody that as we go through this document, we have policies that have pretty much been vetted and approved by the council. The 7 goals that are in place. The policies and the objectives that are underneath those, that's the meat of what we're going to be going through during this process, and that's what we will adopt as our comprehensive plan. And the action items that we are adding to it, we will have an opportunity to add and delete from it on a semi-regular basis. But the bulk of what we're going to be doing is through the process that we're doing. So if we have ideas to add to them, we should go ahead and add actionable items now, but it's not the end of when we're going to be able to comment on it.
And this is actually kind of a good way to, I want to like think backwards a little bit here. Because maybe you have an action item that fits really well into that theme but we don't necessarily have an objective that fits with it, or a policy that fits with it. And this may be a time where we want to talk about that action item and where it could fit within the comp plan structure.
Okay. Commissioner Giles?
Yeah, so in the last 3 sentences that everybody has said, we use the term goals, strategies, action items, objectives, and policies. And as near as I can tell, strategy, action items, objectives, and policies all roll up to goals. Is that correct?
It's policy,
Yeah.
then goals, then objectives, then action items, right?
Okay, but
Nope,
if
it's
I'm
goal.
looking,
Yeah, you have your goal up at the very top.
right.
Then you're gonna have your policy.
Okay, but so now I'm looking at this worksheet and I
Right. I
see
know.
the left
I
column.
know. I know
Okay.
what you're gonna say because I messed the very first section, which is the economic section. I did not list the policies. That was my mess up. But if you go to section 2, which is strategic and collaborative governance, you will see the goal, policy, and objectives listed.
Okay.
So that
Yeah, I just and even I mean the fact of the matter is uh, we're using the action slash strategy. Is there value in having both words there, or
nope.
like these are some of the things that I'm looking at and going, yeah, nobody's going to understand this unless somebody's eating and breathing this all the time. And so, is it and maybe again, it just I may need to marinate in it for a little bit longer to be able to understand this, but it seems overly complicated with a lot of words when essentially the objectives and maybe this might just be something a page we put at the beginning to say, hey, here's the because here's the vision, and then there's the comprehensive plan, and then the strategic plan, and that's made up of all of these different goals, or sorry, themes, which are made up, and each theme has goals, and each goal has policies, and each policy has objectives, and each objective has actions or strategies. But the fact is that we call the top thing the strategic or action plan, and so it's or not the top thing, that's the third thing down, and so you know what I mean. It's confusing again to somebody who's coming in looking at this, going, why are we? What exactly are we referring to? I'm going to stop there because it could also just be that I need to again marinate in it a little bit.
I would not argue against a single one-page explanation to the reader that says, here's the format that our comprehensive plan takes. That's a really, really valid point, is to a lay person getting ready to read the document, the format for each section has these underlying, here's the outline, the vision. Yeah, that's perfect.
And by the way, Erica, I was able to rattle that off because I had to draw one for myself, and so I'll just include that in the scan of that I send you.
great.
And Erica has been fabulous. And both Joy and Erica, I have taken a document and written my notes off to the side and said, I draw a line through something, have an arrow, and say, what about this? And so, when I don't always have time to retype it, but they have been immensely gracious in taking my comments and in whatever format and being able to incorporate it and call me when they can't read my handwriting. so they're very, very good. Oh, Commissioner Widola, you've been awful quiet. Do you have any comments on the document, questions?
No, I'm good right now.
Okay. All right. So your recommendation, Erica, was to try and tackle each one of these action items by a block.
Yeah, so we plan on adopting the comprehensive plan next spring. So we have quite a bit of time to go through this document. So I don't want to, rush all of you to have this done by, a specific date. Ultimately, we will need to get through it by, next spring, early summer. But I think, it's a good refresher on what we've done over the past couple months and the steps that we've taken. And so with that, maybe we want to schedule another work session, on the first block and have a little refresher on what we've done for the economic development portion of the comp plan, maybe next month.
So I would like to start utilizing our work sessions like either right before or right after a meeting that's a required hearing meeting, so that commissioners can have a break if we don't have a hearing, so that I know it's nice to have 2 meetings a month, and we have something really complicated, we can do that. But if we can dovetail work sessions into hearing nights, that also
Yes.
helps use our time well. Then maybe we can just, like you said, do one block right before each hearing. That puts us in a focused situation that says, this is our block. We have 25 minutes. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll start our hearing at 7 o'clock. That might help keep us focused too, so I don't wander off. So,
Does that sound good to everyone?
is everybody? And then we can start looking at one block at a time. And I think this is good because that'll have, in looking at it, we're really ready to vet out block 1 right now. And in a month, by the time we get a couple of more hearings and a couple more blocks, it looks like we'll have actionable items to the collaborative governance one. So I think that'll work out well. All right.
All right. Oh, Commissioner Giles.
Commissioner Giles.
Sorry, I feel like I'm being super over chatty here, but what would also be really helpful is if we say, okay, our goal is to go through theme, thriving and diversified economy, and the action item is to assign, deadlines and fill in any, gaps or mark what are mandated. Like, give us here is the thing that we're trying to accomplish in that section, um, so that I know kind of how to form my feedback for you. Because if you're looking for, okay, well, who are the responsible? We got to fill out the who. That's different than saying, are we missing something, or do we need to add a new objective to hit that goal, or something like that. So
That's great. So with every theme, I'll send out a little memo before each work session with with our feedback questions that I want, answered from the commission.
That's great. So do we have any more questions about the strategic action plan before we make any announcements? I was just, before we go into and I missed that our first actual hearing is the Parks and Recs hearing. Does anybody have any initial questions or concerns about the hearing? I don't know if anybody's seen or watched them online to have formed any types of questions or concerns about how the process is going to work. No. Okay. So our next meeting is September 22nd, correct, Joy? Or Erica? Sorry.
No, that is correct, and we'll have a work session on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
And that'll be our time to ask questions about how the hearing's going to work.
Right.
And we'll do our hearings, legislative hearing 101 at that time.
Yep.
All right. And I know we have planning commissioner and we'll do, after Commissioner Giles, we'll do planning commissioner announcements and then see if the Counselor Scott has any announcements from council before we adjourn. So Commissioner Giles?
yeah, so for the Parks and Rec specific meeting on the 22nd, You mentioned watching it online or reading it. Is there, so if I search Sherwood Parks and Rec Master Plan, it'll come up?
So I will be sending you a packet on September 5th, on September 15th that will include the draft parks plan that
Great.
you'll be reviewing on the 13th.
Okay.
It's also televised in the Sherwood YouTube page, so you can look under the header. It says Parks and Rec.
And that's the hearing that the Parks and Rec committee or board met when they had their meeting.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
So I believe they are meeting next week on the 14th. I can't remember off the top of my head. But what they're going to be doing is they're going to be recommending the plan to the Planning Commission for public hearing. And they're going to be reviewing that plan once again. And I know that in late July of this year, and I don't know if Commissioner Harsh or Commissioner Giles were on the commission at that time, but we did have a brief update on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan with the Parks Board. We had a combined joint meeting in late July, I believe.
No, must not have been on it.
And I don't think I was either. So I think I missed that. What I was referring to about is if you've not attended any hearings, if you had seen any of our hearings previously, to know kind of the format and how things how public hearing goes.
I will send you a link to one of our previous legislative hearings, so you can
oh my goodness,
watch it via YouTube.
I was gonna say, so you can bore them for an hour. That is.
In the packet, the welcome packet she sent us that I read all the way through, it does lay out the steps. Like, you're supposed to read a whole bunch of stuff, which is why you were objecting to the 2-inch folder and all this, I suspect, because you don't want to read for an hour straight. So I get it.
Yeah.
And then for the Parks and Rec Master Plan, I'm going to assume it's going to be similar to how some of our other master plans are, is that there's usually an executive summary in the front.
Yep.
The meat and potatoes of what their really goals and objectives are for their particular plan. And then behind it is a whole bunch of supporting documents about how they came to that conclusion. And the further you go back, personally, is the faster I read, because the board has done their due diligence just like we do our due diligence before we head it on to city council. So the executive summary, I may read that a couple of times to make sure I fully understand what's going on there. And then with the meat and potatoes, I look for things that, any red flag that I might see might be, hey, I've never seen that before. Can I hope that someone can explain to me what we're changing, and the master plan looks a little different, and how did we get to this point? And then maybe find it later in the documents that are in the back. So hopefully it's not 500 pages, but
it's not 500 pages.
Oh, good. See, it's already a bonus day. So, and is this part of the parks plan? Is that part of what they did when they did the outreach back in the summer, when they had the consultant come through with all those different visuals in the art center? Is this the continuation of that work effort?
It feels like
years ago.
Yeah, but it was only this past January that we had that open house with all the visuals. It was a visual preference survey, and we had an open house, and it showed a lot of park amenities, and we took a little survey of what kinds of parks amenities do folks like, and then we kind of talked about the cost of each one of those amenities, and did a little, you know, balance, I think, with community feedback on what folks preferred.
And they had an instant read. Everybody in the audience had a little clicker chart of a scale of 1 to 5, and you clicked on it right away. And then they put visual pie charts up on there, and they said, okay, this park costs this much. What do you think? And then boom, the instant results. So the park's done a really good job in getting background research into this document. So it's exciting to see that it's coming to us now. So, all right. Counselor Scott, do you have any announcements for us from the city council?
Not a whole lot. It's been a pretty quiet last couple of meetings, as summer usually is. We did annex a parcel of property over in the Tonquin employment area for industrial development. It's right off the roundabout there on Oregon Street in Tonquin.
Mhm.
There's a second parcel that should also be annexed either at our next, I think it's at the first, it's like the first October meeting. It was originally scheduled to be annexed at this last meeting as well, but they were working with a neighbor on some easement or access issues, so that should get resolved, and then we'll annex that as well. So both of those are part of the development process. As you know, the voters approved the annexation of both of those parcels back in 2013 or 2012. It's been quite a while ago, well before the state Senate bill changed the way annexation works. But we did formally annex those. We appointed a lot of people to boards and commissions, including I think 1 or 2 people that are on the call tonight. No, that was the last one. Sorry, we got another go around coming soon though. And then that's really the bulk of it. We did have a work session on diversity, equity, inclusion. All of this is on YouTube, of course. You can feel free to watch those if you haven't already. So that was a good first step in what will be, a much longer and involved process on how the city wants to go after that. I think that's all I got for right now. We do have a meeting next Tuesday.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the update.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other announcements or questions from the commission? All right. Any other staff input before we adjourn? Erica, as always, thank you very much for your offer to assist and help us out. You and your staff are amazing. I appreciate the help that you personally give me, and then as a commission that you help us out a lot. So thank you. And thank you, Joy.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You're
right.
the hard workers. You're the volunteers.
All right. Well, if we don't have any other comments, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye.